The holiday air was crisp, snowflakes gently falling from the sky and blanketing the streets of Manhattan in white. Twinkling lights danced in the windows of the high-end restaurant, La Serene, where a warm glow and festive decorations promised holiday cheer to all who entered. It was Christmas Eve, a time when the city's elite gathered to celebrate in opulence. Inside, the hum of conversation mingled with the clinking of champagne flutes. The aroma of truffle risotto and roasted duck wafted from the kitchen. Among the diners, all impeccably dressed, was a striking couple, radiating elegance and confidence. Marcus and Elena Taylor, a successful black couple in their mid-30s, were dressed to the nines. Marcus in a tailored navy suit, and Elena in a crimson gown that shimmered like the lights on the Rockefeller tree. The Taylors were a power duo. Marcus had built a real estate empire from the ground up, while Elena was a celebrated author and philanthropist. Together, they were living the American dream. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of their latest achievements, a recent charitable initiative that had provided housing for hundreds of underprivileged families. They had chosen La Serene, not just for its five-star cuisine, but for its reputation as a sanctuary of refined taste. But not everyone at La Serene shared the holiday spirit. As they settled at their reserved table, a murmur rippled through the room. The couple noticed subtle glances, cold stares, and whispered remarks from nearby patrons. At first, they tried to brush it off. They were no strangers to being the only black faces in a room, even in the 21st century. However, the tension became undeniable when their waiter, an older man with a pinched face and a dismissive tone, approached. "Apologies," he said, his words clipped, "but there's been an issue with your reservation. We'll need you to vacate this table." Marcus frowned, maintaining his composure. "That's odd, we reserved this table weeks ago. Can you check again?" The waiter's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've already checked. Management has requested that you leave. There's nothing more I can do." Elena's hand tightened around her napkin. "Is this about us?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. The waiter's silence spoke volumes, and it was then that a manager appeared, backing his employee with a similarly frosty demeanor. "We reserve the right to refuse service," the manager said, the words oozing with thinly veiled prejudice. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. All eyes were on the couple. Marcus stood, his towering frame exuding quiet strength. "Very well," he said, his voice steady. "We won't stay where we're not welcome. Merry Christmas to you all." Elena linked her arm through his, holding her head high as they walked out, their dignity intact despite the humiliation. The murmurs grew louder, with a mix of sneers and a few guilty, averted gazes. But the true shock came when the couple reached the valet stand. As the valet rushed to retrieve their car, a collective gasp rippled through the restaurant. A sleek, custom Lamborghini Aventador pulled up to the curb, its electric blue paint gleaming under the streetlights. The valet handed Marcus the keys with a smile that contrasted sharply with the cold treatment they'd just received inside. Marcus helped Elena into the car before sliding into the driver's seat. As the powerful engine roared to life, Marcus glanced back at the restaurant window. Through the glass, dozens of astonished faces stared, jaws slack. The Lamborghini sped off, leaving behind a trail of stunned silence. As the Lamborghini glided through the snow-dusted streets, the festive glow of the city felt distant, almost mocking. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw set, while Elena stared out of the window, her reflection shimmering against the frosted glass. The hum of the engine filled the silence between them, a silence not born of anger, but of unspoken emotions struggling to find words. Finally, Elena broke it. "Do you think they even realized what they were doing? Or was it just instinct?" Her voice was quiet, but laced with frustration. Marcus sighed deeply. "Does it matter? Racism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a look, a tone, or," he gestured briefly, one hand still on the wheel, "an excuse to remind you that you don't belong. Even when you do." Elena nodded, her hands resting in her lap. "It wasn't just us they insulted tonight, Marcus. It's every person who looks like us, who works twice as hard just to be seen as equal." Marcus's grip on the wheel relaxed slightly. We've faced worse, Elena. We'll keep pushing forward, just like we always have. They pulled into the underground parking lot of their luxury penthouse, the Lamborghini's tires crunching softly on the fresh layer of snow. The doorman greeted them warmly as they stepped into the elevator. Elena glanced at her husband. She could see the tightness in his shoulders, the weight he carried not just as a successful man, but as a black man in spaces that still resisted their presence. "Marcus," she said softly as the elevator doors closed, "I'm proud of us. Don't let tonight make you think otherwise." He looked at her, his expression softening. "I'm proud of us too, but sometimes I wonder if it's ever enough." Their penthouse was warm and inviting, the large Christmas tree in the corner twinkling with golden lights. Stockings hung by the fireplace, and gifts were piled neatly under the tree, evidence of their plans to host a Christmas morning celebration for close friends and family. The space, filled with love and success, stood in stark contrast to the treatment they'd received just an hour ago. Elena poured them both glasses of wine as Marcus sank into the couch, loosening his tie. "So, what do we do next?" she asked, handing him a glass. "We do what we always do," he said after a long sip. "We turn this into a lesson for us and for them." Elena raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" Marcus leaned forward, his eyes lighting up with determination. "We've built our lives on proving people like them wrong. It's time to remind them and everyone watching that success doesn't just look like them. It looks like us too, bigger and better." Elena smiled, her earlier frustration giving way to admiration. "I like the sound of that. But how?" Marcus set his glass down. "It starts with telling our story, not to them, but to the people who need to hear it the most. People who are still fighting to believe that their dreams are possible." The next morning, while the city celebrated Christmas, the Taylors quietly worked behind the scenes. They called their publicist, drafted an open letter, and began laying the groundwork for an initiative they had been considering for years, a project aimed at supporting minority-owned businesses and fighting systemic discrimination in luxury spaces. Elena tapped away on her laptop, crafting a heartfelt message for her social media platforms. "Let's remind them, Marcus, that no one gets to define our worth but us." He nodded, looking out the window at the snowy cityscape. "This isn't just about proving a point. It's about creating change for everyone who's ever felt what we felt last night." By midday, the Taylors' story had begun to circulate, a powerful narrative of resilience and triumph. Elena's post, accompanied by a picture of them smiling in front of their Lamborghini with the caption, "Dignity cannot be taken, it is earned," went viral. But the ripple effects of their actions were only just beginning. By the afternoon of Christmas Day, the Taylors' story had gained traction on social media, sparking conversations that ranged from admiration to controversy. Their open letter, published on a prominent platform, called out the subtle racism they had faced at La Serene while celebrating their success as black professionals. It wasn't an attack, it was a rallying cry. They spoke of dignity, equality, and the importance of creating spaces where everyone, regardless of race, could feel valued. Support poured in. Thousands shared their post, including celebrities, activists, and public figures. But as expected, the backlash came just as swiftly. "That restaurant didn't tell you anything," read one comment. "Stop playing the victim," another chimed in. "You people just love turning everything into racism." "Maybe they didn't like your attitude." Marcus scrolled through the comments, his jaw tightening. "It's the same script, different actors," he muttered. Elena looked up from her phone. "Don't let them get to you. For every troll, there are 10 more people standing with us. Look at this." She handed him her phone, showing him a tweet from a prominent CEO pledging to collaborate on their initiative. Marcus's face softened. "You're right. The ones who matter see the truth. We focus on them." Their initiative, which they named the Legacy Project, took shape quickly. They envisioned a fund that would support minority entrepreneurs, offering mentorship, grants, and access to networks that were often closed off to people of color. Marcus reached out to his network in real estate and finance, while Elena contacted influential figures in publishing and philanthropy. But their first challenge came from an unexpected source, La Serene. 2 days after the Taylors' post went viral, the restaurant issued a public statement. We deeply regret any misunderstanding that occurred on Christmas Eve. Our establishment prides itself on inclusivity and excellence. We are reviewing the matter internally to ensure such incidents do not happen again. The Taylors weren't convinced. To them, the statement reeked of damage control, not accountability. Elena, Marcus said, handing her his phone. You're going to want to see this. She read the article he had pulled up. It was from a local journalist who had dug into Le Serene's practices, uncovering a troubling history of discriminatory behavior. Former employees spoke anonymously about being instructed to seat black patrons in less desirable areas, or make excuses to discourage their reservations. They've been doing this for years, Elena said, shaking her head. And now they're trying to save face because we called them out, Marcus nodded. This is bigger than us. We need to keep pushing. Later that week, the Taylors held a press conference to formally launch the Legacy Project. Standing on the steps of a community center they had funded years ago, they spoke about their vision. We're not here to tear anyone down, Marcus said to the gathered crowd and cameras. We're here to lift people up, to remind the world that success comes in all colors, and that everyone deserves a seat at the table, whether it's in a boardroom, a restaurant, or anywhere else. Elena stepped forward, her voice steady but impassioned. Change doesn't happen by staying silent. We've experienced the barriers firsthand, and we've broken through them. But now, it's time to tear those barriers down for others. That's what the Legacy Project is about. The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in from individuals and corporations alike, and the Taylors were inundated with messages of support. However, the backlash didn't fade. Critics accused them of grandstanding, while others questioned their motives. Despite the noise, Marcus and Elena stayed focused. Their team worked tirelessly to vet applications for the Legacy Project's first round of grants. They planned a gala to officially launch the fund, inviting some of the most influential figures in business, media, and activism. But the challenges kept coming. Le Serene wasn't done. They filed a defamation lawsuit, claiming the Taylors' accusations had damaged their reputation and led to a drop in business. Elena clenched her fists as their lawyer explained the situation. They humiliated us, and now they're playing the victim? Marcus placed a reassuring hand on hers. Let them come. We have the truth on our side. The lawsuit became another lightning rod for public opinion, but it also fueled more media coverage of the Legacy Project. Donations doubled in the weeks leading up to the gala. Meanwhile, the Taylors received an outpouring of stories from people who had faced similar discrimination. Some were heartbreaking, others inspiring. They decided to include these testimonials in their gala presentation, highlighting the voices of those who had been silenced for too long. As Christmas gave way to the new year, the Taylors prepared for the biggest night of their lives, a night that would test their resolve and define their legacy. The night of the gala arrived, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Held in the grand ballroom of a luxury hotel overlooking Manhattan's skyline, the event was a dazzling affair. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, and tables adorned with white roses and silver accents sparkled under the glow. The guest list was a who's who of influencers, business moguls, celebrities, and activists, all gathered to support the Legacy Project. Marcus adjusted his bow tie in the mirror while Elena stood behind him, draping a diamond necklace around her neck. Her emerald green gown flowed elegantly to the floor, a statement of power and grace. You ready? She asked, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Marcus took a deep breath and nodded. Ready as I'll ever be. Tonight isn't just about us, it's about them. They entered the ballroom to a round of applause, their presence commanding the attention of the room. Cameras flashed as they made their way to the stage, where a large screen displayed the Legacy Project's logo. The evening began with speeches from allies who believed in their cause, followed by testimonials from the recipients of the project's first grants. One by one, men and women stood at the microphone, sharing their stories of struggle and triumph, their voices resonating with the audience. Elena stepped forward next, her words carefully chosen but heartfelt. This isn't just about money. It's about dismantling barriers that were never meant to be there in the first place. Tonight, We celebrate the power of opportunity and the resilience of the human spirit." The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "And this is just the beginning. Together, we're building a legacy not just for ourselves, but for generations to come." As the evening unfolded, everything seemed to be going perfectly. Guests mingled, donations surged, and the energy in the room was electric. But just as Marcus and Elena were beginning to relax, one of their assistants approached with a worried look. "There's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." Marcus exchanged a glance with Elena before nodding. "Who is it?" The assistant hesitated. "It's the manager from La Serene." Elena's eyes narrowed. What could he possibly want? Marcus straightened his jacket. "Let's find out." They stepped into a side room where the manager of La Serene, Charles Whitaker, stood waiting. He was a middle-aged man with slicked back hair and an expression that teetered between nervousness and defiance. "What are you doing here?" Marcus asked, his tone calm but firm. Whitaker cleared his throat. "I came to talk, to set things straight." Elena crossed her arms. "Straight about what? The way you humiliated us on Christmas Eve? Or the lawsuit you filed against us?" He winced. "Look, the lawsuit wasn't my idea. The owners pushed for it after the backlash. But that's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" Marcus asked, his patience thinning. Whitaker sighed, his shoulders slumping. "Because I was wrong. We were wrong. And I wanted to tell you in person." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You expect us to believe that? After everything?" "I don't expect forgiveness," he said quickly. "But you need to know the truth. That night, we didn't just turn you away because of prejudice. The truth is, our investors have been pressuring us for months to cater exclusively to a certain clientele. Wealthy, white." Elena's lips tightened. "So, you admit it. Racism disguised as exclusivity." Whitaker nodded, shame flickering across his face. "I'm not proud of it. And since your story broke, I've been reevaluating my choices. This lawsuit, it's a farce. If you push back, it'll crumble. I came to warn you." Marcus and Elena exchanged a look. "Why tell us this now?" Marcus asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. "Because," Whitaker said, his voice cracking slightly, "I've seen what you're building here tonight. The legacy project, it's bigger than anything we've ever done at La Serene. And I want to help. I want to make amends." Elena stared at him, her emotions warring between disbelief and cautious hope. "You think one apology and an offer to help erases what you did?" "No," Whitaker said quietly. "But it's a start. And if it helps, I've already resigned. Effective immediately. I'm done being part of the problem." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then Marcus extended a hand. "If you're serious about change, we'll see it through your actions. Words aren't enough anymore." Whitaker shook his hand, visibly relieved. "Thank you. I'll prove it." As he left, Elena turned to Marcus. "Do you think he's genuine?" Marcus shrugged. "Time will tell. But if tonight's taught me anything, it's that even the smallest change can lead to something bigger." Back in the ballroom, the evening ended on a high note. The Taylors announced that the legacy project had surpassed its initial fundraising goals, securing enough to fund over 100 minority-owned businesses in its first year. As they stood together on stage, hand in hand, Elena whispered to Marcus, "This is what they'll remember, not the car, not the headlines." "This," Marcus smiled, his heart full. "And it's only the beginning." The days following the gala were a whirlwind. News outlets covered the success of the legacy project extensively, praising the Taylors for turning a moment of discrimination into a movement of empowerment. Social media exploded with hashtags like #LegacyProject and #Dignity is Wealth, showcasing stories of people inspired by Marcus and Elena's initiative. But not everyone welcomed the change. Critics intensified their attacks, accusing the Taylors of orchestrating the entire incident at La Serene for publicity. One particularly inflammatory op-ed called them opportunists cloaking self-promotion in the guise of activism. Marcus sat at the dining table, scrolling through his phone. "They're really out for us, huh?" he muttered, showing the article to Elena. She read it, her expression unreadable. "Let them talk," she said firmly. Their words won't stop what we're building. Their confidence was tested again when news broke that La Serene had closed indefinitely, citing financial strain from the negative publicity and subsequent loss of clientele. The lawsuit against the Taylors was dropped quietly, but not before the restaurant's owners issued a final scathing statement blaming the couple for their downfall. It was bound to happen, Marcus said as he read the statement. They built their house on sand, Elena agreed, but couldn't shake a sense of unease. Still, this could make things harder for us. Some people will see this as us ruining lives, not changing them. Their publicist, Ava, entered the room carrying a thick folder. You're not wrong, she said, dropping the folder on the table. This is what we're up against now. Hate mail, media attacks, and even a few protests outside our office. Elena frowned, flipping through the pages. Protests? Against us? Ava nodded. Small but vocal. They're framing you as anti-business elitists. But the good news is, it's not affecting our core supporters. Donations are still coming in strong. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his temples. We need to get ahead of this narrative, Elena agreed. We need to show people what the Legacy Project is really about. Let's visit some of the businesses where funding put faces to the change we're creating. A week later, the Taylors embarked on a tour of the first recipients of the Legacy Project's grants. Their visits included a barbershop in Harlem, a family-owned bakery in Atlanta, and a tech startup in Silicon Valley, led by a young black woman with a revolutionary idea for sustainable energy. At each stop, they filmed candid interviews with the business owners, sharing their stories of perseverance and ambition. The footage was compiled into a short documentary that aired on a major streaming platform titled Legacy in Action. The documentary was a hit, garnering millions of views within days. It painted a clear picture of the impact the Legacy Project was having, silencing many critics and amplifying the voices of those whose lives were being transformed. Meanwhile, Charles Whitaker's resignation and subsequent apology began to gain traction. He had joined a local nonprofit dedicated to addressing workplace discrimination and was using his platform to speak out about the systemic issues he had once upheld. Elena watched one of his interviews on the news where he admitted, I was part of the problem, and I didn't even realize the full extent of it until I was confronted with my own actions. The Taylors showed me that accountability isn't just about saying sorry, it's about actively working to make things right. Marcus walked into the living room as the interview ended. You believe him yet? Elena shrugged. He's saying the right things, but I'll believe it when I see consistent action. Whitaker's journey sparked conversations about the possibility of redemption and the role of allies and movements for change. Some saw his transformation as genuine, while others remained skeptical, viewing it as a calculated move to save face. Despite the challenges, Marcus and Elena remained steadfast. They expanded the Legacy Project, creating mentorship programs and networking events for minority entrepreneurs. Their efforts gained recognition from major institutions, with invitations to speak at conferences and universities. But their biggest challenge came when a high-profile investor approached them with a controversial proposal. I can fund the Legacy Project for the next decade, said Jonathan West, a billionaire known for his philanthropy, but also for his questionable business practices. But I'll need some say in how the funds are allocated. Elena's expression turned icy. You want control, she said flatly. West smiled. Not control, just influence. With my resources, we could scale this tenfold. Marcus leaned forward. At what cost? This isn't just a business to us, it's a mission, West chuckled. Missions need money, Marcus. And I have plenty of it. The Taylors left the meeting feeling conflicted. West's offer was tempting, but it came with strings that threatened the integrity of their work. That night, as they sat by the fire, Marcus turned to Elena. We've always done this our way. No shortcuts, no compromises. If we let someone like West dictate the terms, we're no better than the systems we're fighting against. Elena nodded, her resolve firm. We'll find another way. We always do. The decision to decline Jonathan West's offer wasn't easy, but Marcus and Elena stood firm. Their refusal sparked conversations within their team, some of whom questioned whether they were being too idealistic. Ava, their publicist, voiced her concerns during a strategy meeting. "Look, I get it, you want to keep the legacy project pure," she said, pacing the room. "But West's funding could change the game. What if someone else offers money, but with fewer strings attached? Are we just going to say no to everyone?" Marcus leaned forward, his tone calm but resolute. "We're not against taking help, but we won't compromise our values. If the money doesn't align with our mission, it's not worth it." Elena chimed in. "This isn't just about scaling fast, Ava. It's about building something that lasts. We're not in this for quick wins," Ava sighed, nodding reluctantly. "All right, but we need to be prepared. People are going to question why you turned West down, and he won't stay quiet about it." Meanwhile, the backlash from La Serene's closure continued to ripple through their lives. Former employees of the restaurant began to speak out against the Taylors, accusing them of ruining their livelihoods. A local news station aired a segment featuring interviews with waitstaff who had lost their jobs, framing the Taylors as villains in their story. "It's heartbreaking," said one former hostess, her voice trembling. "I worked there for years. Now I'm unemployed on Christmas. And all because two rich people wanted to make a statement." Elena watched the segment, her stomach twisting. "They're twisting the narrative," she said, setting her coffee mug down with a sharp clink. Marcus nodded, his expression grim. "And they're making us the scapegoats." They decided to address the controversy directly, organizing a press conference to clarify their position. "We never intended for anyone to lose their jobs," Marcus said, standing behind a podium with Elena at his side. "The closure of La Serene was the result of their own discriminatory practices, which we merely exposed. Our goal has always been to create opportunities, not take them away," Elena added. "For those who have been affected, we encourage you to reach out to us. We're committed to helping anyone who wants to find new employment, especially in inclusive workplaces that value diversity." Their statement was met with mixed reactions. While many praised their willingness to help, others saw it as an admission of guilt. The controversy sparked a new wave of headlines, keeping the Taylors in the spotlight for better or worse. Amid the storm, an unexpected ally emerged. A prominent civil rights attorney, Naomi Carter, reached out to the Taylors, offering her support. She had been following their story closely and admired their resilience. "Your fight is bigger than this one restaurant," Naomi said during their first meeting. "It's about systemic change. And I think we can do more together." Naomi proposed a partnership, combining the Legacy Project's resources with her legal expertise to tackle discriminatory practices in other industries. "We can't stop at businesses like La Serene," Naomi said. "We need to address the roots of these issues in hiring, promotions, and even access to capital." Marcus was intrigued but cautious. "This sounds ambitious," he said. "How do we ensure we're not stretching ourselves too thin?" Naomi smiled. "That's where my team comes in. You focus on empowering entrepreneurs, and I'll take the fight to the courtroom." Elena nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Let's do it. Together, we can make an even bigger impact." As the Legacy Project expanded, cracks began to form within their team. One of their senior advisors, Caleb Hart, had been growing increasingly frustrated with Marcus and Elena's decision-making. Caleb, who had pushed hard for them to accept West's funding, began meeting secretly with other potential investors without the Taylors' knowledge. When Marcus discovered this, he confronted Caleb in the office. "What the hell were you thinking, going behind our backs?" Marcus demanded, his voice low but seething. Caleb didn't flinch. "I was thinking about the future of this project. You're turning down opportunities left and right, and it's holding us back." Elena stepped in, her voice sharp. "We made our position clear, Caleb. If you don't believe in our vision, why are you here?" Caleb hesitated before responding. "Because I believe in the mission. I just think you're too idealistic. Sometimes you have to play the game to win." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "If playing the game means compromising what we stand for, then it's not a game we're interested in." Caleb left the meeting visibly angry, and the tension within the team lingered. The incident forced Marcus and Elena to reevaluate their inner circle, realizing that not everyone shared their unwavering commitment to the project's values. Despite the challenges, there were moments of triumph. The Legacy Project's second wave of grants was announced, and one recipient, a young chef who had been displaced after La Serene's closure, shared her gratitude in a viral video. "I thought my dream was over when I lost my job," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But the Legacy Project gave me a second chance. I'm opening my own restaurant next month, and I couldn't have done it without them." The video became a beacon of hope, reminding Marcus and Elena why they had started this journey in the first place. "We're making a difference," Elena said that night as they sat together on the balcony of their penthouse. "Even if it's messy, even if it's hard, it's worth it." Marcus wrapped his arm around her, gazing out at the city below. "It is. And we're just getting started." The victories brought by the Legacy Project felt monumental, but with every step forward came personal and professional challenges that began to take a toll on Marcus and Elena. The pressures of their growing influence weighed heavily on both of them, testing their resolve, their relationships, and their own sense of identity. Marcus began to spend long hours working on expanding the project's partnerships and managing the business side of the initiative. While he was proud of what they were building, the stress of constantly being under public scrutiny began to wear on him. One evening, after yet another long day, Marcus arrived home to find Elena sitting on the couch, waiting for him. The lights were dim, the Christmas tree still glowing softly in the corner. "You're late again," Elena said, her tone neutral, but her expression tired. Marcus sighed, loosening his tie. "It's been nonstop at the office. There's always something, another call, another meeting, another fire to put out." "I get that," Elena said, crossing her arms. "But we're supposed to be a team, Marcus. Lately, it feels like I'm handling everything alone." Marcus sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. "I'm not doing this alone, Elena. I'm carrying all of this weight, trying to make sure we don't fail." "You have no idea what that feels like." Elena's eyes narrowed. "I don't? Do you think I just sit here all day, waiting for you to come home? I'm running just as hard as you are, but at least I'm trying to keep us connected." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice softer. "I didn't mean that. I feel like I can't let my guard down. Not for a second. Everyone's watching, waiting for us to slip." Elena moved closer, placing a hand on his. "I know. I feel it too. But we can't let it break us, Marcus. This project started with us. If we lose that, what's the point?" Marcus nodded, guilt flickering across his face. "You're right. I'll do better. I promise." While Marcus dealt with the external pressures, Elena faced her own battles. As the public face of the Legacy Project, she had become a symbol of hope for many, but also a target for critics. Every word she said was dissected, every action scrutinized. One afternoon, while preparing for a live interview, Ava approached her with a worried look. "You need to see this," Ava said, handing Elena her phone. It was a trending hashtag cancel the Taylor's. Underneath were dozens of posts accusing Elena of being out of touch, claiming she was using her wealth to preach to people who didn't have the same opportunities. Elena stared at the screen, her stomach twisting. How do they not see what we're trying to do? "Some people don't want to see it," Ava said gently. "You're challenging the status quo, and that makes people uncomfortable." Elena took a deep breath. "We've faced worse. Let's focus on the interview. They'll hear the truth from me, whether they like it or not." The interview was a success, with Elena articulating her vision with passion and clarity. But the constant barrage of negativity began to take a toll. That night, she sat in her office, scrolling through messages of support and hate, wondering if the sacrifices they were making were worth it. The strain wasn't limited to their professional lives. Tensions began to emerge within their extended family as well. Marcus's younger brother, Devin, had always been a staunch supporter of their success. But lately, he had grown distant, his tone sharp during their rare conversations. It all came to a head during a family dinner. As they sat around the table, discussing the Legacy Project's latest achievements, Devin interrupted. "Must be nice," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Flying all over the country, getting applause, and driving Lamborghinis. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just trying to make rent." The room fell silent. Marcus frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Devin leaned back, crossing his arms. It means you're out here saving the world, but you can't even see what's happening in your own family. Mom's been struggling with her medical bills, and I'm working 2 jobs to keep her afloat. Marcus blinked, guilt washing over him. Why didn't you tell me? I would have helped, Devin scoffed. You shouldn't have to be told, Marcus. You're so busy being a hero for strangers. You've forgotten about us. Elena reached out. Devin, that's not fair. We care about all of you. Do you? Devin shot back, his voice rising. Because it doesn't feel like it. The argument simmered down eventually, but the encounter left Marcus shaken. That night, he promised Elena, we need to do better by our family. They've been there for us, and we owe them the same. Despite these personal struggles, the legacy project continued to grow. Marcus and Elena's partnership with Naomi Carter led to a landmark lawsuit against a major corporation accused of discriminatory hiring practices. The case garnered national attention, further cementing the legacy project's reputation as a force for change. But with more success came more enemies. A powerful lobbyist group began funding a smear campaign against the Taylors, accusing them of fostering division and promoting reverse discrimination. Their faces appeared on billboards and TV ads, accompanied by the slogan, "Stop the Taylors from destroying opportunity." Marcus watched one of the ads with a mix of disbelief and anger. They're really pulling out all the stops now. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. Let them. Every attack just proves we're making an impact. Still, the pressure was unrelenting. As they prepared for their next big event, a national conference on racial equity, both Marcus and Elena knew they were nearing a breaking point. The question was, how far were they willing to go to keep fighting? The National Conference on Racial Equity was a defining moment for Marcus and Elena Taylor. The event was being held in Washington, D.C., and their keynote speech was the highlight of the agenda. Thousands of attendees, including business leaders, activists, and politicians, gathered to discuss actionable solutions for systemic inequality. The Taylors knew this was their chance to solidify the legacy project's influence on a national scale, but the rising backlash loomed over them like a storm cloud. The morning of the conference, Marcus's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. He opened an email marked urgent, only to find a chilling message. Stop what you're doing, or there will be consequences. You've been warned. Attached was a blurry photo of their penthouse, taken from the street below. Marcus's stomach clenched as he showed the message to Elena. This is getting out of hand. It's one thing to deal with critics, but this feels personal. Elena's eyes darkened. We need to involve the authorities. This isn't just about us anymore, our team, our family, they're all at risk. Their head of security was immediately alerted, and additional measures were put in place to ensure the safety of everyone involved in the legacy project. Marcus and Elena refused to let the threat derail their plans, but the message lingered in their minds, a sinister reminder of the stakes they were facing. Despite the tension, the Taylors delivered a powerful keynote speech that captivated the audience. Marcus spoke of their journey, emphasizing resilience in the face of adversity. Elena shared stories from the legacy project, highlighting the lives that had been transformed. We're not here to ask for permission to dream, Marcus said, his voice steady and impassioned. We're here to demand a world where everyone has the freedom to thrive. The standing ovation that followed was a testament to their impact, but not everyone in the room was applauding. Among the attendees was Jonathan West, the billionaire investor they had turned down weeks earlier. He approached them after their speech, his expression unreadable. "Well done," he said, extending a hand. "You've certainly captured the nation's attention." Elena shook his hand cautiously. "Thank you, Jonathan. What brings you here?" West smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just observing. I'm always interested in seeing how influential players handle themselves on the big stage." Marcus's jaw tightened. "If you have something to say, Jonathan, just say it." West chuckled. "You've made a lot of enemies, Marcus. Powerful ones. I hope you're ready for what's coming." Before they could respond, he walked away, leaving them with more questions than answers. That evening, as they debriefed with their team, one of their advisors, Sarah, pulled Marcus aside. "There's something you need to see," she said, her voice low. Sarah showed Marcus a document she had received anonymously. It was a dossier detailing a coordinated effort by several influential figures, including Jonathan West, to discredit the Legacy Project. The smear campaign, the protests, even the threats, it was all part of a larger strategy to undermine their work. "They're scared of you," Sarah said. "You're disrupting their control, and they'll do whatever it takes to stop you." Marcus's mind raced as he processed the information. "We need to go public with this," he said. "Expose them for who they really are." Elena joined the conversation, her expression serious. "If we do that, we're escalating this fight. Are we ready for that?" Marcus met her gaze. "We've come too far to back down now." As the Taylors prepared to release the dossier, tensions within their team reached a breaking point. Caleb Hart, the advisor who had clashed with them before, voiced his opposition. "This is reckless," Caleb argued during a heated meeting. "You're going to alienate potential allies and turn this into a war you can't win." Elena shot back. "We're not here to play it safe, Caleb. This is about exposing the truth. Exposing the truth won't matter if it destroys everything you've built," Caleb countered. Marcus stepped in, his voice firm. "If you don't believe in what we're doing, Caleb, no one's forcing you to stay." The room fell silent as Caleb glared at Marcus. "Fine. If you want to burn it all down, don't expect me to stick around and watch." He stormed out, leaving the team shaken, but united in their mission. The next day, the Taylors held a press conference to unveil the dossier. Standing before a sea of cameras, Marcus addressed the nation. "For too long, systemic inequality has been protected by those who benefit from it. Today, we're shining a light on the forces working against progress, not just for us, but for everyone fighting for a better future." Elena added, "This isn't just our fight. It's a fight for every person who's been told they don't belong, who's been denied opportunities because of who they are. We won't be silenced, and we won't back down." The release of the dossier sent shockwaves through the media and political landscape. Some praised the Taylors for their bravery, while others accused them of escalating tensions unnecessarily. Jonathan West responded with a cryptic statement: "Truth is subjective. Let's see how theirs holds up under scrutiny." As the Taylors braced for the fallout, the threats against them intensified. Anonymous messages flooded their inboxes, and their office was vandalized with graffiti that read, "Stay in your place." But amidst the darkness, there were moments of hope. Messages of support poured in from people around the world, inspired by the Taylors' courage. One message stood out: "Your fight is our fight. Keep going. We're with you." Elena read the message aloud to Marcus, tears in her eyes. "This is why we can't stop." Marcus nodded, his resolve. "Let them come. We've faced worse, and we'll win this fight too." The fallout from the release of the dossier was immediate and far-reaching. The media buzzed with debates. Social media erupted with both outrage and support, and the Taylors became the most talked-about figures in the nation. Yet, amidst the chaos, connections began to surface, threads that tied their struggle to a larger, more insidious web of systemic corruption. As Marcus and Elena worked with Naomi Carter to handle the growing wave of public attention, Sarah, their advisor, approached them with a new lead. "Something about this dossier doesn't sit right," Sarah said, spreading a series of documents across the table. "This isn't just about a smear campaign. These people west, the lobbyists, even some of the media outlets attacking you, they're all connected through a network of private funding groups." Marcus leaned in, studying the documents. "What kind of groups?" Sarah hesitated. "Think tanks and PACs that operate under the guise of promoting economic freedom, but in reality, they're protecting systems that disproportionately exclude marginalized communities." Elena frowned. "So, this isn't just about us. It's about maintaining control, keeping the old guard in power." Naomi nodded. "And it's bigger than we thought. If we expose this, we're not just taking on individuals. We're challenging an entire system." The realization weighed heavily on the Taylors. They knew their fight had grown beyond the Legacy Project. It was now a battle against a deeply entrenched network that had thrived in the shadows for decades. As they dug deeper, one name kept resurfacing in the documents: Caleb Hart. Marcus couldn't believe it at first. Despite their earlier clash, he had trusted Caleb's dedication to the mission. But a series of leaked emails revealed that Caleb had been feeding information about the legacy project to Jonathan West and his allies. Confronting Caleb was inevitable. Marcus and Elena arranged a meeting at a cafe, hoping to get answers. When Caleb arrived, his demeanor was defensive. "So, this is what it's come to. Accusing me of being a traitor? You don't deny it," Marcus said, his voice cold. Caleb scoffed. "I told you before, Marcus, your idealism is going to ruin this project. West offered a way to secure funding and scale fast, but you shut him out. Do you know what we could have accomplished by now if you hadn't been so stubborn?" Elena's voice was sharp. "And selling us out was your solution? Handing our enemies the tools to destroy everything we've built?" Caleb's expression hardened. "You think you're so righteous. But the world doesn't work the way you want it to. Sometimes you have to make deals with the devil to get things done." Marcus stood, his jaw tight. "We're done here. You're out of the legacy project, effective immediately." Caleb shook his head, standing as well. "You're making a mistake. West and his people won't stop until you're finished. And without me, you won't see them coming. We'll take our chances," Marcus said, his voice firm. As Caleb left, Elena reached for Marcus's hand. "We'll handle this." Together, in the midst of their efforts to counter the growing attacks, a surprising figure reached out, Charles Whitaker, the former manager of La Serene. "I've been following what's happening," Whitaker said during a video call, "and I think I can help." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "After everything," Whitaker nodded. "I know I was part of the problem before, but I've been working with Naomi's nonprofit, and I've uncovered some things about La Serene's investors. Turns out, many of them are tied to the same network you're fighting against." Elena's eyes widened. "You're saying La Serene wasn't just a restaurant. It was part of the system." "Exactly," Whitaker said. "I have documents that prove it, financial statements, meeting minutes, even emails. If you're willing to trust me, I can give you everything." Marcus hesitated, glancing at Elena. "Can we trust him?" Elena studied Whitaker's face, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "We don't have to trust him completely. But if what he has can help us, it's worth taking the chance." The documents Whitaker provided were explosive. They revealed a web of influence that extended far beyond the Taylors' immediate struggles, implicating major corporations, politicians, and media figures. Naomi's legal team verified the evidence, confirming its authenticity. "This isn't just a fight for equality," Naomi said during a late-night strategy session. "This is about dismantling a system built to preserve power at all costs." The Taylors decided to release the information strategically, partnering with investigative journalists to expose the network piece by piece. The first article, published by a major news outlet, detailed the financial ties between Jonathan West's investment firm and several discriminatory practices across industries. The public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Protests erupted outside the offices of implicated companies, and lawmakers called for investigations. But the revelations also brought new dangers. Anonymous threats escalated, and one night, Marcus and Elena's penthouse was broken into while they were out. Though nothing was stolen, the message was clear: they were being watched. "This is bigger than us now," Elena said, her voice trembling as she surveyed the damage. Marcus wrapped an arm around her. "We've come too far to stop. They can try to scare us, but they won't win." Despite the threats, support for the Taylors grew. More people began to share their own stories of systemic discrimination, inspired by the Legacy Project and the couple's unyielding determination. A viral social media campaign, #StandWithTheTaylors, brought millions of voices together, amplifying their fight and turning the tide of public opinion firmly in their favor. As the movement gained momentum, Marcus and Elena realized that their journey was no longer just about themselves. It was about everyone who had ever been silenced, excluded, or underestimated. The momentum from the revelations and growing public support was undeniable, but so was the rising tension. The Taylors found themselves at the center of a movement that had outgrown even their boldest expectations, and their enemies were doubling down on efforts to discredit and silence them. Late one evening, Marcus was on a video call with Naomi, Carter, and Sarah, reviewing the next round of exposes. The weight of their work was evident in their tired faces. These next documents tie the network directly to discriminatory hiring policies at several Fortune 500 companies, Naomi explained. But once this goes live, there's no turning back. They'll come for you harder than ever, Marcus nodded. Let them. This isn't about us anymore, it's about justice. As the call ended, Elena entered the room, holding her phone. Her expression was grim. You need to see this, she said, handing him the device. It was a video from a news channel featuring Jonathan West. I've remained silent out of respect for the Taylors' work, West said, his tone dripping with feigned sincerity. But now, it's clear they're driven more by personal ambition than by a true desire for change. Their so-called exposes are misleading, and their methods are dividing the nation. He paused, leaning forward as if speaking directly to the viewer. This isn't about equality. It's about control. And I, for one, won't stand by as they destroy lives and livelihoods in the name of their agenda. Marcus's jaw clenched as he set the phone down. He's framing himself as the victim now. Typical. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. He's desperate. That means we're winning. But the video wasn't just an attack, it was a rallying cry. Within hours, West's allies launched a counter-campaign, flooding the media with accusations that the Taylors were profiting off their activism. Their credibility was under siege, and Marcus and Elena knew they needed a decisive move to turn the tide. As they brainstormed their next steps, they received a surprise visit from Charles Whitaker, the former manager of La Serene. He entered their office, carrying a folder of documents. I found something else, Whitaker said, his voice low. It's about West. Elena raised an eyebrow. What is it? Whitaker handed them the folder. Inside were emails and financial records tying Jonathan West directly to discriminatory practices at several luxury establishments, including La Serene. This is the smoking gun, Marcus said, flipping through the documents. If we can prove he wasn't just complicit, but actively involved, it'll destroy his credibility. Whitaker nodded. But it won't be easy. West has deep connections in the media and politics. He'll fight this tooth and nail. Elena's expression hardened. Then we fight harder. The closer they came to exposing West, the more personal the attacks became. A viral post surfaced accusing Marcus and Elena of neglecting their family in pursuit of fame. The post featured a picture of Marcus's brother, Devin, and their mother, claiming they were struggling financially while the Taylors lived in luxury. Marcus slammed his laptop shut, anger flaring. They're dragging our family into this now. Elena placed a calming hand on his arm. We'll address it. Call Devin. Make sure he knows we're here for him. But when Marcus called, Devin's tone was cold. Why are you calling now? Devin asked. To fix your image. Devin, that's not fair, Marcus said, his voice strained. You know I would never. I don't know, Marcus. Devin interrupted. You've been so caught up in this crusade of yours. Maybe you forgot about the people who've been here from the start. The call ended abruptly, leaving Marcus reeling. Elena found him sitting on the edge of their bed, staring at the floor. We're losing him, Marcus said quietly. And I don't know how to fix it. Elena sat beside him. We'll find a way. But right now, we need to finish what we started. If we let West win, everything we've done will mean nothing. The Taylors and their team decided to release the documents implicating Jonathan West. To ensure maximum impact, they partnered with a major investigative news outlet, which published a scathing expose titled The Man Behind the Curtain, Jonathan West and the System of Discrimination. The article detailed West's financial ties to discriminatory policies, his efforts to undermine minority-led initiatives, and his role in the smear campaigns against the Legacy Project. It was backed by irrefutable evidence, including the documents provided by Whitaker. The backlash against West was immediate and fierce. Several of his business partners publicly severed ties with him, and lawmakers called for investigations into his activities. While the expose was a major victory, it came at a cost. The Taylors faced increased threats, forcing them to relocate temporarily for their safety. Their team worked tirelessly to maintain momentum, but the strain was evident. One evening, as they sat in a rented house outside the city, Elena turned to Marcus. "Do you ever wonder if it's worth it?" she asked softly. Marcus looked at her, surprised. "You think it's not?" Elena shook her head. "I know it is, but sometimes I miss the life we had before all this." Marcus took her hand. "I miss it too, but we're building something bigger than us. Something that will outlast all of this noise." Elena nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I just hope we can see it through." As the Taylors prepared for the next phase of their fight, the nation seemed to be at a tipping point. Their work had inspired millions, but it had also revealed deep divisions. Their journey was no longer just about confronting discrimination, it was about healing a fractured society. And as the storm intensified, they knew the climax of their story was fast approaching. The Taylors were now at the eye of the storm. While the expos on Jonathan West had discredited one of their most powerful adversaries, it also escalated the intensity of the conflict. The public was divided more than ever, with protests both supporting and opposing the legacy project erupting in cities across the country. The couple braced themselves for the inevitable confrontations, knowing that the decisions they made in the coming days would determine not just the future of their initiative, but also their personal lives and safety. Naomi Carter had been working tirelessly to prepare a legal case against Jonathan West and several other key figures implicated in the network. The lawsuit alleged a pattern of discriminatory practices that violated federal civil rights laws. The courtroom became the latest battleground, drawing national attention as the trial unfolded. On the first day, West's lawyers attacked the Taylors' credibility, painting them as opportunists using race as a weapon to gain power. "This case isn't about justice," West's lead attorney argued. "It's about personal gain, about destroying livelihoods to elevate themselves. The Taylors have weaponized their narrative to manipulate the public and punish those who disagree with them." Marcus, sitting beside Elena in the courtroom, felt his hands clench into fists. Elena placed a calming hand on his knee, whispering, "Stay focused. Truth will win." Naomi countered with damning evidence, internal emails, financial records, and testimonies from former employees and colleagues who confirmed West's direct involvement in discriminatory practices. One former executive testified, "Jonathan West explicitly instructed us to ensure that minority-owned businesses were excluded from certain contracts," claiming they wouldn't fit the brand image. The testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom, and the media coverage was relentless. Outside the courtroom, the threats against the Taylors escalated. One evening, after a particularly heated day in court, Marcus received a phone call from an unknown number. Marcus Taylor, the voice on the line said, cold and deliberate, "You're playing a dangerous game. Who is this?" Marcus demanded. "That doesn't matter. What matters is this. Walk away from the trial, and we'll make this all go away. Keep going, and you won't like the consequences." The line went dead before Marcus could respond. He told Elena about the call, and they immediately contacted their security team and law enforcement. But the sense of vulnerability was inescapable. "This isn't just intimidation," Marcus said. "They're desperate. They know they're losing." Elena nodded, her face resolute. "Then we keep fighting. If we stop now, they win. And we can't let that happen." Amid the chaos, Marcus received an unexpected visitor at their temporary residence, his brother, Devin. "I owe you an apology," Devin said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. Marcus stepped aside to let him in. "You don't owe me anything," Marcus said cautiously. "I do," Devin insisted. "I've been angry, not just at you, but at myself, watching you fight for something so big. It made me feel small, like I wasn't doing enough." Marcus's expression softened. "Devin, this fight isn't just mine and Elena's. It's for all of us. And you've been there for me more than you realize." Devin nodded, his eyes misting. "I want to help, however I can." The brothers embraced, their reconciliation a rare moment of light in an otherwise dark time. The courtroom drama culminated in a critical moment when the judge announced that the case would proceed to a jury trial. The decision was a victory for the Taylors and Naomi's team, but it was only the beginning of a long and grueling legal battle. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Marcus and Elena. "Do you think this trial will finally bring justice?" one reporter asked. Elena's answer was measured but firm. "This trial is just one step in a much larger journey. Justice isn't a single event, it's a continuous fight, and we're prepared to see it through." While the trial continued to dominate the headlines, the Legacy project pressed forward. The second round of grants was announced, and a record number of minority-owned businesses applied. One recipient, a single mother launching a tech startup, shared her story during a live-streamed event. "Before this, I felt invisible," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But the Legacy project saw me, believed in me, and gave me the chance to build something for my daughter's future." The story resonated with millions, reigniting public support for the Taylors despite the relentless attacks. Just as the trial seemed to be leaning in their favor, Naomi discovered a key piece of evidence, a confidential memo detailing plans by West's network to discredit the Taylors long before the controversy at La Serene. The memo read, "We must neutralize their influence before the Legacy project gains further traction. Focus on framing them as divisive figures and undermining their credibility through coordinated media efforts." The memo was a bombshell, confirming that the smear campaign was premeditated. Naomi filed the memo as evidence, and its revelation turned the tide definitively against West. As the trial neared its conclusion, Marcus and Elena faced one final decision. Despite the heightened threats, they were invited to speak at a national summit on racial equity, a platform that could amplify their message to unprecedented heights. Marcus hesitated. "If we go, we're putting ourselves at even greater risk." Elena met his gaze. "But if we don't, we're letting fear dictate our actions. We've come too far to stop now." Marcus nodded, his resolve solidifying. "Then we go. Together." The invitation to speak at the National Summit on Racial Equity presented an opportunity the Taylors couldn't ignore. Scheduled to be held in Washington, D.C., the event promised to bring together leaders from business, politics, and activism. For Marcus and Elena, it was a chance to shift the narrative definitively, leveraging their platform to inspire change on a national scale. But the threats against them had reached a boiling point. Law enforcement identified a network of anonymous actors linked to the intimidation campaign, but no arrests had been made. The Taylors' security team insisted on implementing the strictest protocols for the trip. The summit was a grand affair, held in the sprawling conference center of a luxury hotel. Thousands of attendees bustled through the halls, and the energy in the air was palpable. The keynote speech by Marcus and Elena was scheduled as the event's final act, a deliberate choice to leave a lasting impression. Before their session, Marcus and Elena mingled cautiously with other attendees. Many expressed admiration for their work, while others approached with thinly veiled skepticism. Among the latter was a familiar face, Jonathan West. "Still fighting the good fight, I see," West said, his smirk as infuriating as ever. Elena didn't miss a beat. "And still clinging to a crumbling empire, I see." West's eyes darkened, but he maintained his composure. "Enjoy your moment in the spotlight. It won't last." Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Neither will your excuses. The truth always comes out, Jonathan." West walked away, leaving a tension that lingered long after he was gone. Unbeknownst to the Taylors, whispers of a planned disruption at the summit had begun to surface. Sarah, their advisor, intercepted a message from a whistleblower connected to West's network. "They're planning something during your speech," Sarah said, her face pale as she relayed the information. Marcus frowned. "What kind of something?" "We don't know yet," Sarah admitted. "But they're desperate, and desperate people do reckless things." Elena glanced at Marcus, her voice steady despite the rising fear. "Whatever it is, we're not backing down." The conference hall was packed to capacity as Marcus and Elena took the stage. The crowd erupted in applause, their presence commanding attention. Behind the podium, the Taylors stood side by side, a united front against the storm that surrounded them. Marcus began the speech, his voice resonating with conviction. "This isn't just a fight for equality. It's a fight for opportunity, for dignity, for the chance to build a life that isn't defined by the limitations others place on us." Elena followed, her words carrying a powerful emotional weight. We've faced opposition at every turn not because we're wrong, but because we're proving that change is possible. And when you prove that change is possible, those who profit from the status quo will fight to stop it. The audience was captivated, many nodding in agreement as the Taylors spoke. But just as Elena reached the crescendo of her speech, a commotion erupted at the back of the hall. A group of protesters burst into the room, carrying signs that read, "Stop the Taylors," and chanting slogans accusing them of divisiveness. Cameras turned toward the scene, capturing the chaos as security moved to intervene. Elena paused, her gaze steady as she scanned the crowd. "Let them speak," she said into the microphone, silencing the murmurs in the room. The protesters hesitated, caught off guard by her response. One of them, a young man in his 20s, stepped forward hesitant. "You're tearing this country apart," he said, his voice shaking. "You're not helping anyone, you're just making things worse." Elena took a step closer to the edge of the stage, her expression soft but resolute. "I hear your frustration," she said, "but the division you're talking about didn't start with us. It started with systems that were built to exclude people like us, and people like you from opportunities we all deserve." The room fell silent as she continued. "We're not here to create enemies. We're here to break down barriers. If you're willing to have a real conversation, we're here to listen." The young man hesitated, his anger giving way to uncertainty. Security escorted the group out peacefully, but the moment left a lasting impression. As the speech concluded, the audience erupted in a standing ovation. Marcus and Elena stepped off the stage, their hearts pounding not just from the tension, but from the realization that they had turned a potential disaster into an opportunity to reinforce their message. Backstage, Naomi Carter greeted them with a proud smile. "That was masterful," she said. "You didn't just silence the critics, you showed the world what leadership looks like." But the night wasn't over. As the Taylors prepared to leave the venue, Sarah rushed toward them, her face pale. "You need to see this," she said, holding out her phone. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Leaked recordings from Jonathan West's inner circle had surfaced, exposing their plans to sabotage the legacy project and discredit the Taylors. The recordings were damning. In one, West could be heard saying, "If we don't stop them now, they'll destroy everything we've built. I don't care what it takes, make it happen." The news spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and turning public opinion sharply against West and his allies. The Taylors returned to their temporary residence, exhausted but invigorated. The recordings were the final piece of evidence they needed to dismantle the network that had been working against them. "We've got them," Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. Elena nodded, her eyes reflecting both hope and exhaustion. "Now, we finish this for everyone who's counting on us." The leaked recordings were a turning point in the Taylors' battle. Public opinion shifted overwhelmingly in their favor, and the backlash against Jonathan West and his network of allies was swift and severe. Protesters outside the Legacy Project's headquarters replaced angry signs with ones that read, "Justice wins," and "Legacy of Hope," but the fight wasn't over. The recordings had escalated tensions, and the Taylors knew that their enemies would make one last desperate attempt to stop them. The courtroom was packed for the final day of Jonathan West's trial. Reporters filled the gallery, their pens poised to capture every word. Marcus, Elena, and Naomi sat side by side, their expressions a mix of anticipation and resolve. West's lawyers had attempted to dismiss the recordings as fabricated, but forensic experts confirmed their authenticity. The evidence, combined with testimony from former employees and business partners, painted an irrefutable picture of West's corruption and discriminatory practices. When it was time for closing arguments, Naomi stood confidently before the jury. "This case is about more than one man's greed," she began. "It's about a system that has allowed discrimination to flourish unchecked for far too long. Jonathan West may be the face of this network, but the true enemy is the silence and complacency that have enabled it. The Taylors chose to break that silence, and today you have the chance to do the same." As Naomi returned to her seat, she glanced at Marcus and Elena, who nodded in silent agreement. The jury deliberated for hours that felt like days. When they finally returned, the courtroom fell silent as the foreperson stood to deliver the verdict. On the charge of conspiracy to commit discrimination, we find the defendant, Jonathan West, guilty. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Marcus felt Elena's hand squeeze his, her grip firm and steady. As additional guilty verdicts were read on multiple counts, the relief in the room was palpable. Justice had been served not just for the Taylors, but for the countless individuals whose lives had been impacted by the system West had upheld. Outside the courthouse, a crowd of supporters cheered as Marcus and Elena emerged. Cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, but Marcus raised a hand to quiet them. "This verdict isn't the end of our journey," he said. "It's a step forward, one of many we need to take to create a better, more just world. We didn't win today because of us. We won because of all of you who stood with us, who believed that change is possible. This is your victory." In the weeks following the trial, the Legacy Project saw an unprecedented surge in support. Donations poured in, and new partnerships were formed with businesses and organizations committed to fostering inclusivity. Marcus and Elena used the momentum to expand their work. They announced the creation of the Legacy Fellowship, a program providing mentorship and funding for minority leaders in business, technology, and the arts. The first recipient of the fellowship, a young woman named Carla, stood on stage at the announcement gala, tears streaming down her face. "You gave me hope when I had none," she said. "Because of you, I believe in myself again. Thank you for showing the world what's possible." That night, Marcus and Elena returned to their penthouse, which had been restored after the earlier break-in. They sat together on the balcony, looking out over the city. The snow was falling softly, just as it had on that fateful Christmas Eve when their journey began. "We did it," Elena said, her voice filled with both pride and exhaustion. Marcus nodded, wrapping an arm around her. "We did. But this is just the beginning," Elena smiled. "It always is." They sat in silence, the weight of their victory settling in. The battle had taken a toll, but it had also given them something priceless, the knowledge that they had made a difference. As the year drew to a close, the Legacy Project continued to grow, touching lives across the country and beyond. Marcus and Elena's story became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to stand against injustice and believe in the power of change. And while their journey had been fraught with challenges, they knew one thing for certain: their legacy was one of resilience, courage, and unwavering faith in a brighter future. The story of Marcus and Elena Taylor is more than a tale of resilience. It's a call to action for all of us. Their journey reminds us that real change begins when we choose courage over complacency and action over silence. Reflect on the lessons. How can we challenge systemic barriers in our communities? What role do we play in creating opportunities for those who have been historically excluded? How can we ensure our own actions align with the values of justice and equality? Take action today. Support initiatives that foster equality. Seek out and contribute to organizations like the Legacy Project that empower marginalized communities. Be an ally. Use your platform, no matter how big or small, to amplify voices that need to be heard. Educate yourself. Learn about the systemic issues affecting your community and beyond, and engage in conversations that drive awareness and understanding. Join the movement. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs inspiration, and take the next step toward building your own legacy of hope and change. Together, we can create a world where everyone, regardless of their background, has the chance to succeed.